You may have realized that being healthy feels different than it did in the past now that you're over 50. If you want to maximize your health potential but don't have time to read through overwhelming pages of Google links, this is the show for you. Welcome to Healthy Tips After 50. We love doing the research, finding solutions, talking to health experts, and learning what works and what doesn't. Now, your host. She spent the last 25 years dedicated to feeling her best and is here to share her best findings with you, Susan Rosen.
Hi everyone, this is your host Susan Rosen, and today, or this week, we're going to talk about improving our focus and memory. One nice thing about being over 50 these days is that because we are such a large group of people, there are a lot of medical people, organizations and institutions, as in schools and research centers, looking at how we age and how we can stay healthy longer. This is particularly true about our brains, our memories, and our emotional well-being, because that's what we are interested in maintaining and hopefully improving. And that's what all of these people are looking to help us do as well. Personally, I'm interested because I want to not just maintain, but improve my memory and focus. And I'm sure you or someone you know is interested in that as well. I've just been reading a couple of very interesting articles about memory, attention spans, and focus. I thought I'd share some of this information that I found really interesting with all of you here. First, there was an explanation of the 3 phases of memory: encoding, that's EN, storage, and retrieval. Encoding is the capturing of information, like when you listen to this podcast. Storage is your working or short-term memory, where you're putting the information you're hearing right now and maybe sharing it with someone else right after you hear it. Storage also includes your long-term memory, where it can stay for months, years, or even the rest of your life. The third memory phase is retrieval, which you do by recall or recognition. Recall is directly accessing the memory when you want to tell someone about it or use it in some way, like when you want to tell someone what it was that you learned about in this podcast. Recognition is when there is a piece or pieces of information that remind you of something and you bring it up out of your memory. That could be seeing an article in a magazine about brains and memory, and that reminds you of this podcast that you heard. Not surprisingly, what interferes the most with all 3 of these phases are distractions. If we get distracted during this 3-stage process, then we won't create full and complete memories. Paying attention and focusing on what we're doing and experiencing helps us to encode and store our memories more efficiently. It seems that it's also helpful to actually tell ourselves that we want to remember something, while at the same time being very calm about doing it, and adding in vivid, dramatic, or visual details also helps the memory get into your brain faster and easier. Getting overexcited or anxious puts our brain, and specifically the amygdala, into the fight or flight mode, creating an awareness of a need for survival, which is not a supportive environment for creating strong new memories. A little deep breathing can calm your brain and your system, creating a good environment to create, store, and retrieve those memories. This is all good information to remember when you are wanting to focus and create those memories. Another article I read in a different newsletter talked specifically about improving focus and concentration, because that is what allows us to recall the memories from our brains, especially as we age. Things like instant recall of names or information, staying focused on an activity, or even just paying attention in certain circumstances. Searching for something on the internet is a good example. You start looking for one product, and 20 minutes later, you realize that you've looked at 5 other products and can't remember what you found out about the first product you looked at. We have all done that, believe me, and still do, sometimes. There has been new research showing that as we age, some aspects of attention change as we get older, and we are typically not as good at searching, visually, rapidly processing information, and/or responding quickly. We also don't have the structure and responsibilities to help us stay focused. There was some research in 2018 showing that a part of the brain called the locus, and I'm going to screw this up, I'm sure, the locus coeruleus is what helps our brains focus, especially under stress or in emotional situations. What the researchers found was that the locus, whatever it is, ability to focus may actually decline with age and get even worse with a lot of distractions or emotional upsets. Of course, we all know how easily it is to get distracted and lose our focus, no matter our age or situation. There are also a lot of physical and emotional things that can interfere with concentration and focus. Chronic illnesses and the pain that goes along with some of them. Emotional upsets, pandemics, phone calls, text messages, or even the neighbor next door who slams doors and talks extra loud if you live in an apartment building. All of those things interfere with our focus, and some can create permanent damage to our brains. What we need to do is to notice what is going on when we get distracted. Am I trying to multitask and not doing it very well at that? Do I have the news on or music playing while I'm trying to pay my bills? Am I especially tired or pressured? When you identify some of these things for yourself, then spend some time looking at how you can change that environment. Change the timing of a task. Make a list and work through it instead of trying to do it all at the same time. Schedule break times and go for a walk outside or get yourself a cup of tea or ice water. We all sit for way too long these days, and it's best to get up and move around and then go back to focusing on something. If you are revisiting old and perhaps painful memories or worrying about something you did or are scheduled to do, try changing your thought to something easier and more joyful. You can't change the past, and you certainly can't control the future. So spend your time focusing on the present and what needs to be done now, and not necessarily tomorrow. Interestingly, focusing and paying attention to what you're doing or what's happening around you is the first step in creating new memories. When you need to learn something new, or if you especially want to remember what you're doing, refocus yourself onto that task or experience in order to create that memory and store it away in your brain. And while you're at it, don't forget to eat a healthy diet and get some exercise. Those will create the environment to support your brain and your memory making and recalling. Just as information, the 2 newsletters I used as my main resources for the information in this podcast, amongst others, but these were the 2 main ones, were the Massachusetts General Hospital Mind, Mood, and Memory newsletter and the UCLA Health Healthy Years newsletter. And let me just say that, as usual, I am not a doctor. This should not be construed as medical advice. And if you are having some medical issues, particularly around your brain and your memory focus, go to see your doctor or go to emergency room if it's at that kind of a level. So that being said, I will say goodbye and look forward to talking to all of you next week.
This has been Healthy Tips After 50 with Susan Rosen. To stay on the cutting edge of the most effective health strategies, subscribe to this podcast and let us know what you thought of the show with a comment or like on iTunes. Visit healthytipsafter50.com for this episode's show notes, more resources, and free offers.